Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I look at every classic Doctor Who story plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. Today, on the 28th of April 2020, I am starting a look at the final audio in the Mark trilogy. This is the first story of that release that we're looking at over the next couple of days. Warzone. It's the first, there's, of course, this is a two-part release, so we'll be taking a look at the second part next time, but today we're talking about Warzone. Now, before I begin, just a reminder that because in 2019, YouTube was caught data mining the information of underage users, therefore violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and they implemented policy to scapegoat creators, meaning that I have to make sure that it is known that this video is not meant for children. It's not targeted towards kids. It's not written with kids in mind. Yeah, Doctor Who is a family show, but this is a story. This and with all videos on my channel, we'll be looking at the show from an adult perspective, and possible discussions of adult themes are described. So that viewer discretion is advised. That being said, we're starting to look at part 1 of Warzone here on the 20th of April. Warzone is the first story that we are covering, written by Chris Chapman. Chris Chapman is interesting because he was primarily in charge of, directing and producing a lot of documentaries for the classic Doctor Who DVD range, including for things for the DVDs like the Deadly Assassin, Carnival of Monsters, The Awakening. He did work on a lot of those things. He also did stuff for, has done, basically just done a lot of stuff in his time. But he's also a writer, and he has been writing for Big Finish, actually quite a bit. His first actual story for Big Finish was in 2016 with The Memory Bank, which we will eventually cover, obviously. But with Warzone, he gets to write a very, very interesting story, mainly because it does an interesting idea of having the companion from the past sort of see how a tradition that he may be familiar with has evolved and changed from the past to the present. There really is just this good sense of who the character has become. It's a different sort of different sort of thing that you get to see, really how Mark, who is Roman, living after the population of the Marathon, which came from how you created a trek from the on the just on how the run from Athens to Sparta was from Marathon to Athens was 26.2 miles, mixed in with just sort of how this idea of how modern fitness crazes, you know, you has sort of gone intense. Like, people are sort of, there's this trail of having to be better and continue to be your best self, and really having a just that sense of really um, you know doing something new and something different. It's it is the sense that there is a a real idea here about these characters becoming their own um, their own sort of ideas, being the best they are, and they're adding like explosions and changing tracks and dangerous like side quests to the marathon to make it even harder, just to sort of improve who you are, which is an interesting sort of idea of what it does. It creates a different a different idea, something new. It's 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 a it's a it's a different sort of idea. Um, it's a different plot, and just different at creating new ideas and new things, and crazy, these crazy things, and you really see, but the big thing of this first episode is building up to the cliffhanger where Mark is killed. Like, the dangers are sort of regulated by these wristbands, and these wristbands basically stop you from getting killed and falling into danger as one to do as is possible. But of course, they don't. The TARDIS team doesn't wear them, and they have to run. And Mark gets into the competition and ends up dead. He ends up with just being killed by an obstacle, and that's the cliffhanger. And it's this great example of doing sort of chaotic storytelling, and really making things interesting and different with the characters, so you really get to see it as it is. So overall, that being said, this is just a great story. So overall, I would have to give part 1 of Warzone a 9 out of 10. Alright, it is the 29th of April 2020, and I just finished listening to part 2 of Warzone, the concluding episode, and an interesting one because it's emotional, and its plot is emotionally driven, basically all trying to get Mark back alive, essentially while he's not living, which is driving, and that drives the plot forward, and it makes things emotional and sad, and you feel, okay, this isn't normal, this is different, really is a harsh reality and a harsh situation to be in, but that actually is somehow enough to really drive the plot. It's something that Chris Chapman actually does a really good job on, when you think about it, because it really shouldn't work. It's like 30 minutes just of trying to save someone. It shouldn't be enough to it should be more than enough time to like actually hit an emotional punch, and it actually does do a good job with the time that it's got. It's there's the whole storyline all about what's happening to Mark. He's well, kind of like like you have the big stuff. You have Tegan giving consent for him to be made better, and the "we will make him better" is actually much darker than you might think, because by better they mean start to upgrade him, and he kind of starts being converted into a Cyberman. Man, like, the Cybermen are behind this story, which I think is interesting, to have the Cybermen here, and this, just, but they aren't, like, the Cybermen here are, essentially, they essentially do this whole thing where they're off screen. Like, it was a Cyberman ship that crashed on this planet when Warzone started their races and things, and everything. And it's slowly been subtly influencing them towards the extreme fitness, just so they can eventually be converted, which is, already an interesting sort of idea. Like, you have the story being all about the Cybermen subtly influencing them and being a really, really good threat, without ever actually appearing. They aren't in this story. They are felt. Their presence is felt. And the effects are there. But it's not something. It's not something that's being done to, basically, it's basically they are still off screen. They you don't see them, which is really, it's really is interesting, for what the story can do and can become. Like it really does manage to do something different, and it creates, just the different sort of setting for things to play around in, and for things to really, you really get to explore, them interestingly, and it's just about it. There is something really, really nice and interesting about it, like, there isn't a complete story. It's something very, very different. Like, and Tegan deals with the fallout of being the one who consented. There's just a bunch of stuff. Like, the actual dressings of the plot are a bit weak, because they're just sort of there because, okay, we needed something interesting and something, different. Something where things, you get to see, something different, and something weird. It's really, really, a standard plot, and that's where it kind of, the plot kind of falls down, but it really is a story all about, it really is a story all about the characters, where things, work work out well. You know, it's something. Uh, it's something different. You know, it's doing something new, and I think that just is really really awesome. So overall, I'd have to give part 2 of of Warzone an 8 out of 10. And that being said, we added the scores and averages them out to give Warzone a final score of 8.5 out of 10. So, that's the end of this story. Once again, as always, thank you for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please let me know what you thought of Warzone in the comments. Have you listened to it? What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Have I convinced you to buy it? Of course, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and click the little bell icon so you don't miss an update. And join me next time when we take a look at the final story in this release, and the actual story to actually, feature the Cybermen with Doctor Who Conversion.